So we need to start working to deliver value to our stakeholder and make sure that every time we meet with them, there's a new value added to the application. And all this is about behavior, and we're going to see why. Here is a diagram taken from the RSpec book that I recommend. Is a very good book to read. And here we see two circles. And that's why this is called the outside-in approach, because you are all familiar with the idea of red, green, and refactor. That's a common cycle that you probably do in your everyday job. So in this case, we see that there's two circles. The outside circle, and that's the behavior driven development circle or the acceptance circle. We also see a red green refactor, and the idea is that we have an outside circle for our behavior and an inner circle for a unit test, for the development of each functionality. When we implement a particular feature, we're going from the outside to the inner circle to implement, and then we go back to the outside. So we're going to start with features in the outside, and then we're going to move from here, from number 2 to number 3 to the inside, and when our iteration is done, we're going to go back to the outside to keep working on more features. I know that this can be a bit confusing right now, but we're going to see some examples in a bit that are going to hopefully make this much more clear. So what we're going to use is a domain-specific language that it's called Gherkin. Gherkin, for all of you that may not know, is a kind of cucumber, and that's why one of the implementations of the language, it's called cucumber. So what Gherkin is about is a business readable domain specific language. It will help us to flesh out requirements and also to have traceability, because we'll provide documentation that can be shared between our stakeholders, our analysts, the development team, and it's the same documentation that we're going to keep it alive. And that's a huge problem with documentation, right? To keep it alive. It provides automated testing because there are many implementations for this domain-specific language. And for example, there is one called Cucumber that's in the Ruby world, SpecFlow for .NET, and there are others, and for example, JBehave for Java. So this is a bit of a different session for a .NET conference, because the first thing we're going to see in our slides is a bit of Ruby. So please don't freak out, don't get scared. It's very, very easy, and we'll work through it together. So the first thing that we're going to look at is the tool called Cucumber. This tool is a scenario runner that will help us to convert our specifications using Gherkin to actually a running test. What do you need in order to run Cucumber? Well, the first thing that I want to talk about is why do I choose to show you guys this tool? We're in a .NET conference, so why I'm going to show you something in Ruby? The thing is that as a developer, I believe that we need to use the best tool for our job. And sometimes if that tool is in a different framework or in a different language, why not? Being a developer, that doesn't mean that we have to stay in a particular language. It means that we always need to provide the best solution. It means that we need to learn from other frameworks. We need to learn what's out there and what's being used. And then we'll be able to provide the best solution. So in this case, what we're going to see is a tool that we can run under Ruby or Iron Ruby. It doesn't matter. And we're going to see how convention over configuration actually is our friend. So what do you need to run Cucumber? You need very few things. The only thing you need is the following folder structure. You need a folder called features, where all your features are going to live in there. You're going to need a folder called step definitions, where the implementation of your features are going to be in there, and then a folder called support. Support is going to contain all the environment setup, and in this case, when we're going to see a tool called Capybara, also the Capybara setup. And because Ruby and usually all the tools inspired by Rails, after that, they're very heavy on convention over configuration. That's the only thing we need, because Cucumber knows that the features folder is where it needs to go and look for stuff, where the steps are implemented, and that the support folder means that it needs to run all that files before launching anything. So what means to do setup? For example, in our case, this is a very simple Ruby file that defines the path to our different URLs. So you see here that the only thing we're doing is a case that we say where we have a home, we go to the root, and then we have movies. In this case, we go to movies. So it's very, very easy to set up, and we see that it comes with a comment, and all this comes for us already, is already set up for us, that it says what we have to do. So let's look at our features. A feature is a simple text file that has very few rules. It starts with the feature keyword, and then the rest is just free text. That I'm going to use an example that I have a movie library. So I say I want to write a feature that makes my library grow, that allows me to add movies. So the feature says that I want to make my library grow. Being a registered user, I want to add movies to the library. So then in the file we see scenarios. Those are different cases to implement our feature. Scenario is another key word that we have to use, and then it's a free text. And then to use Gherkin, the only other keywords that we need are given, when, then, and but. Those are the only thing that we need to know, and the rest is text that is going to be matched. The steps for each scenario, they're going to be matched using a regular expression. Regular expressions in Ruby are matched with the slash, as you see here in the given, and then the text, the other slash, to show the end of the expression. So you may be wondering how this actually works. It's very simple. The tool Cucumber is going to read a scenario, for example, given I have no movies, and it's going to look into all the implementation, right, to find a particular step implementation that matches the regular expression. For example, the same one, given and the regular expression I have no movies, and the code that is inside is going to be run, and in this case it's clear the database. So this is a very quick introduction. Don't worry, we're going to see in a bit an example that is going to make everything much more clear. So now we're going to talk about Capybara. Cucumber is great by himself, but we already saw if you guys saw the previous session about SpecFlow, that we have a tool, a very similar tool that generates a unit test, and we can implement everything in C# or VB.NET and will be the same. So why is different here? Why I want to show you this? It's because of Capybara. Capybara is a tool that works on top of Cucumber and provides you many advantages over. So it's just a gem, a library that is going to simplify our integration test. It's very similar to WebRat. For all of you that don't know, WebRat is a similar tool that Cucumber uses in order to run our tests. For example, we were looking at running our tests with SpecFlow and Waddin, and that will launch the browser every time. So WebRat, what try to do is to say, I don't need to launch the browser anytime, I just need to provide a virtual browser. A browser that knows how to read and follow links and behave like a browser but without launching a window. So Capybara runs on top of Cucumber and is very easy to install because it's just another library, it's just another gem. So why I think that Capybara is a very good option? Well, first of all, supports out of the box different browsers. And we can change the configuration and just a different browser will kick in and run our scenario for us. It provides a driver that allows you to run headless. That means that there is no browser launch. It's a virtual browser. And that's achieved using a driver called WebDriver, right? That's part of Selenium and it's in Java. And it will help us to manipulate all our pages but without launching any browser. That accelerates quite a bit when you run the test and when in your continuous integration environment. That also helps a lot. It uses the tag mechanism that you see in Cucumber to allow us to define when a scenario can be run using JavaScript or not. So sometimes if your application uses heavily JavaScript, you need to launch a browser. So in those cases, you can tag particular scenarios to actually use that. It's very cool that it's not only for Ruby because it supports remote web applications, right? That they're not only the Rack implementation, the Ruby implementation, but we can use it with any ASP.NET MVC. And that's why I'm so excited to show this tool for you. It supports also Ajax. That means that for every link, sometimes when using Ajax, you have to do a wait because the loading won't happen instantaneously. So if you're saying that you should see something in the page, you need to wait a bit in order to the DOM to be reloaded. So this is right in out of the box into Capybara. So all these advantages provide you a very easy way to start testing your applications. So what requires for setup is just this. You need to set up your Capybara file and you're going to see that all the configuration here, you see the local host that is running. You see that I'm setting just a few things and I'm setting which driver I'm going to use. And by default, I'm going to, in this case, to use a Chrome browser because I want to. So you see, it's very simple. This configuration also is very easy to write and there's nothing to it. So these are an example of the steps that that you can see that comes out of the box with Capybara, and that's a huge help, right? If you have a bit of experience with SpecFlow or using it to generate the steps, so you see that many of the steps, though you can use the what in helper library, you have to write them anyways. You have to implement them anyways. So Capybara comes with a web steps implementation that provide all these default steps for you than the very common steps used in any web application. For example, given you're on a home page or given you go to a particular page, all that is already implemented. When you press a button like login, when you follow a link, all that it's part of the steps. More steps, we have filling fields. You can use when I fill a field with a value, when you select from a combo, when you check or you uncheck, right? Or when you choose a particular option, all that is implemented. So checkboxes and radios and selections, they're all for you. An important part of it that we need to implement too is the assertions. The assertions are part also of the default steps, and you will see different steps like then I should see text or then I should not see, and that will be an assertion for you. And then you can check if a field has a particular value, and that's also given. And this is just a small example, and I just put at the end an example of something that you can do is that then show me the page because you're running headless, right? Or sometimes the test runs too fast and you want to see why the result is the result you're getting. So then show me the page will open a browser and will show you the actual page that the tool is using. So you can see why you get the response. So now it's time for our demo. So let me bring here's my Visual Studio virtual machine, and first of all, let's wait for a bit, just until it refreshes. Let me see the questions. Oh, okay. Slow down is killing. Okay, I'll try to slow down a bit. So could you show us the wizard is wired into the controller view? I guess maybe all these are for the previous presenter. I don't know. WF4 fluent workflow. Yeah, I assume. The only question I can answer then is where will the recorded sessions be later today? I'm not sure if they will be later today, but they all be.
Hey, Amir.
Yes.
Amir, yeah, just check. I'll take care of it. But when you're through with the question, just check it off. I'll take care of that. Recorded sessions will be made available later.
Yeah.
So I'll take care of that for you.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. They all will be later. We're all recording our sessions, so you should be able to get them later. So let's go back to our solution. Here you see an example I created. It's called a media library because allows you to add movies to a library, and it's very simple, very small. You have the core project, the core implementations only with movie. I just will leave it open. The domain is the basic interfaces that I use for all the project. You can see that you have users and movies and search engines and stuff like that. And then you have the environment implementation of the library, and then the web application that is a ASP.NET MVC. So when you open it, you'll find all controllers and models, and inside the controllers you see the home, the movies, and it's very simple. You can follow the structure. There's nothing to it. You'll find right away how it works. You have all the unit tests. I know I talked about brownfield applications. You probably won't have unit tests, but just for this example will work. So let's I'll show you how the application works. So I'm going to open, I have it run it in the background. So I'm going to show you basically, it just does two things. It will show you all the movies that you have in the library, and it will let you add movies to the library. So we're in the case, I'm going just to reiterate that we came and we have to work with an application that is already implemented, but we need to write some kind of acceptance test for it. So with that acceptance test, modifying this application will be very hard because we won't know every time we do a change if we broke something or not. If something is broken, it's very hard to test. So my main goal is to show you how to write easy web acceptance cases for this and how that is going to help to keep our quality as a driver. So here you see the basic implementation of the media library. There is no movies, so I'm going to add one movie, and because I'm a fan of Mel Brooks, I'm always using his movies for the demo. So Blazing Saddles, I'm going to just add it to the library, and now when the application shows us the library, the movie is there. So this is my application. I'm going to now try to write the tests for it. I'm going to show you, I wrote a scenario that is using a cucumber, and I tagged it with the tag feature 1, so I can run it by that tag if I want. So the scenario says that I want to browse movies. Sorry, the feature says, and I have two scenarios. One scenario says that I have some movies in the database, so when I go to browse, then I should be able to see the movies. And the other scenario says, well, if there is an empty library when I go to my home page, right, and I want to browse, then I'm going to see no movies available. I'm going to show you right now that what the structure looks like. Here's the structure of my project. I created, if you remember, a features folder, and I have only these things, the two features, one for browse and one for add, the support folder that has my capybara, my environment, and paths that we looked a bit earlier, and my step definitions. So the step definitions for now only has the web steps. The web steps are the steps that come with the tool, and they're already implemented for us. So let's run it and see what we get.